Hello, Terrestrial Aussie coach and hypnotherapist. Okay, so today's video is all about my journey about how I got to the place I'm at today. This video might be a little bit longer, so did want to give you a heads up on that. Okay, so if you've known me for a while, if you've worked with me personally, or maybe if you watched some of my content before, chances are you know that I wasn't born into being a positive person. That's not who I used to be. In my past, I struggled with really debilitating depression throughout much of my life, even starting way back from being a child through my adolescence, where it really peaked and got extreme, and all the way through my early adulthood. And the depression was absolutely just incredibly debilitating. I struggled with panic attacks, really extreme, sometimes daily panic attacks, to where I didn't want to leave my house. I remember I would have to get my stepson from the bus stop, and I would have to take a medication to walk just a few steps out of my doorstep to pick him up from the bus stop, because I was so afraid of having a panic attack. And I would have a panic attack. And so panic attacks were the norm as well. So this daily constant anxiety was something that was in my life. Insomnia, I didn't know what it was like to have a good night's sleep. And low self-worth. I spent most of my life feeling unworthy, not good enough in all aspects of my life. I settled for everything. I had no boundaries. I was always walking on eggshells. I couldn't speak my mind to other people. I didn't feel like I was worthy of anything. And so that's who I used to be. Oh, and not to mention, I was so negative, right? Because if you're struggling with daily panic attacks and anxiety, and you don't feel worthy and good enough, and you're struggling with depression, of course you're going to be negative. So I was really negative too. So all I did was complain about my life. I kind of played that victim role because I was so unhappy. That's all I knew. And so there were so many things in addition to hypnosis that have been so transformative that I've done in my life, to where I literally have had to retrain my thoughts. And so trust me when I say, if I can do it, I truly believe anybody can. Okay, so what are those things that I did? And these things are simple, okay? These things are simple. These things you might have heard of already, you might have done already, you might be doing currently, and if you are, then keep it up, because it's not rocket science here. But this is truly how I got to the place I'm at today. Okay, so I mentioned hypnosis, and I talk about that all the time, and that's fundamental, and I work with clients on all of the issues that I just talked about using hypnosis every single day in my practice. But today's video is not about that. Today's video is about those other things that I did and currently do in my life in addition to hypnosis. Okay, number one, so I remember this milestone moment in my life where I was getting ready to go to bed one night. And at this point in my life, I was on 5 different medications for my anxiety, panic attacks, and depression. I was getting ready to go to bed at night, and this night in particular, I decided, instead of taking a medication, which was typical for me to help me sleep and deal with anxiety every single night, I decided that I was going to do something differently. I decided that I was really tired of these constant medications just in my body. And I decided that this night in particular, I was going to get a cup of tea. Got a cup of tea, and I decided, you know what? Maybe I'll get a book to go with this cup of tea. And I decided to lay in my bed and just have that cup of tea and read that book. And at this point, it was the beginning of kind of my journey, the very, very beginning. And I think I was reading the Dalai Lama, just something inspiring, something new to me, right? And that little milestone moment, something shifted, because for the first time in a long time, I was saying this isn't the norm anymore, right? I was creating a new habit. And so if you heard me talk about habit replacement, a lot of it's based on not only the research that is out there and the effectiveness that it has, but also how I use it in my own life. And that's how I was able to create a new habit. So it became that every single night that I laid in bed, instead of taking that pill, I now was doing this to manage my stress. And to this day, years and years later, I still, you could ask anybody close to me, I still get that cup of tea and I still read that book, because that has now become my new habit. Okay, so that was the first thing that I do. If we want different results, at some point we have to do something differently. And this video isn't a suggestion of you getting off a medication, and it's definitely not a suggestion implying that just by having a cup of tea you can get off a medication, and that's not the implication at all. But for me, it was a change. It was a change of a new habit of something consistently that I was going to start doing that was going to make me feel good. Okay, so that was the first thing that I did. So I started having new habits that I consistently started applying into my life. Okay, so that's step number one. The second thing that I did was I got a hobby. Okay, so this time in my life, I was a stay-at-home mom. I lost my entire identity. I didn't know who I was anymore, and I certainly felt unimportant to anybody with the exception of my little baby. My husband traveled a lot for work, and so he was gone all the time, I felt like, and it was hard. It was hard. I felt so isolated. And so I remember one day he came home with a camera. And up until this point, wasn't on my radar, never thought about photography, didn't even cross my mind. But he came home with this really nice camera, and he gave me this camera. And again, that little tiny moment shifted my entire life. It opened up so much for me because it got me out of my house, right? So even if it was just me getting out of bed to walk around the block to take pictures of flowers or butterflies, that was a start. And when you're depressed, you need a start. And it doesn't matter what that start is, it's something, right? So before you knew it, gave me that spark, that just something to be excited about. And I was really diving into it, right? So that's the second thing I did. So the first thing that I did was I created routines, I created healthy new habits. The other thing that I did, as I mentioned, was I had a hobby. So I'm big on hobbies, right? So if you can't even get out of bed in the morning, if your quality of life is so unfulfilling, you need to find something that gives you that spark, that you're passionate about, that's fulfilling and motivating to you, and make that thing non-negotiable. Absolutely non-negotiable, okay? So that was the other thing I did. The other thing that I did as well was I started to take a look at my diet and nutrition. And I'm big on that too. So if we work together, chances are we might have coached around this as well. So I was eating a complete standard American diet filled with junk food, and I didn't know better. And so my body wasn't getting the nutrients that it needed. Chances are I was highly nutrient deficient, and chances are if I addressed some of those issues early on, then I might not have needed some of those medications and struggled to the extent that I did. So you definitely take a look at your diet. For me, that included things like taking a good omega-3 fatty acid. That included vitamin B supplementation because I don't eat meat. So for me, I really had to make sure that I was getting a vitamin B12. It also included taking a look at my vitamin D levels and deficiencies there. And so definitely take a look at supplementation and or your diet if you feel like maybe you're not at where you should be. Also probiotics, that was another thing too. So much of our mood is correlated to our gut health. So for me, getting my gut healthy was also important. Okay, so that's the other thing that I did. Now I said that this wasn't going to be about hypnosis. But of course, I used hypnosis too, okay? So I'm not going to get too much into that, but I can't create an entire video without, again, reminding you that that was fundamental as well and really shifted things fast because hypnosis is so accelerated, right? The other thing that I did, and this was probably the first time that I had done this, was that I took a look at the causes and reasons. I started to take a look at what was deeper, what was below that depression, what was below that anxiety. And so for me, being a people pleaser, for example, okay, I'm a people pleaser. I had constant anxiety, social anxiety. I worried what everybody else thought. Great. What's the layer below that? Where's this coming from? Well, it stems from me not feeling worthy, me not feeling good enough, me feeling like everybody judges me, maybe fear of abandonment, fear of rejection. That's what it comes from, right? And so I was taking it a step below, taking a look at those layers to kind of deal and heal those core layers for me to move on, right? So for me to get past my depression and my anxiety, I had to heal that core. I had to heal me and work on feeling worthy and work on feeling good enough. And if you've worked with me before, you know that I believe that that's fundamental to everything, right? If we're not feeling worthy or good enough, we're going to really struggle to reach our goals. And for me, I had to do that as well. Okay, so I took a look at that core stuff. What else did I do? I made a conscious effort to shift my mindset. Really conscious effort to shift my mindset. Because I was negative. I was that person nobody wanted to talk to on the phone. I would just complain all the time, right? So I really made a conscious effort to avoid doing that. So for example, if I traditionally would get out of bed in the morning and drive in the car and focus in on all the red lights in the way to work and just everything that was going bad in my life, it's like you have tunnel vision, right? And that's kind of all that appears to you. So I really made a conscious effort to focus in on what was going right in my life, what I did have, to focus in on gratitude, okay? And again, when you're depressed, this isn't always easy. And this certainly, for me, I didn't do it from a standpoint of guilt, right? So, I never want clients to do it from that standpoint either of, oh, look, you should be happy because so-and-so has it worse. So for me, it was never about anything that made me feel worse. It was about focusing in on those things that were around me that I did have available to me and what was going right. Because again, it's hard. When things are bad, it's hard to see that anything is going right. And so I had to make a conscious effort to focus in on those things as small as they were. As small as they were, okay? So it could have been that warm shower, it could have been anything, but you have to start small, right? Okay, well, thank you so much for listening. There are so many other things that I did on my journey. I think maybe I named 4 or 5 of them today, just kind of off the top of my head. But I really think that healing is a continuation. It's continuing to assess and look at how you can improve yourself, how you can improve your life, but also loving yourself and being happy with where you're at that moment as well, right? So as I think of more things, I'll create more videos about how I got to the place I'm at today, but I hope that this is a good start for you and gives you some ideas and maybe some inspiration to know that you can do it too, okay? Leave your feedback below. I love feedback, and sometimes I record videos and I'm curious what everybody else's thoughts are. So if you've been in a similar position as maybe I was in my past and maybe you can relate to that story, or maybe you're there now, I'm here to support you. So let me know how I can best support you and we'll go from there. Thanks so much. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.